Have you ever been on a boat and you look out the back of the boat? What do you see when you're looking out the back of the boat? A wake, right? Well, I propose to you that we have an emotional wake in relationship with others. I want to tell you quickly about this chemical marinade and how it creates an emotional wake. When you think about, let's say maybe your relationship with your grandmother, what feelings come to mind for you? Sometimes I hear people talk about a very special apple pie, or bingo games, or a big hug getting off the bus. That was not my grandmother. I remember in the summers, I would be flown on an airplane many states away. And one summer stands out in particular. When I got off the airplane and my grandmother greeted me, I recall her first sentence was something like this: "No, that won't work. That hair is much too long. We're going to stop by the barber on the way home to get that chopped off." When we arrived at her house, she asked me again, "What books have you brought for the summer?" Oh, I was so excited. I had Nancy Drew and Encyclopedia Brown. Can anybody relate to those? Loved those. But again, I got that, no. Not what we're going to read this summer. She said, "I have reading material spread out on the coffee table." It was actually on every flat surface in her home. College admissions brochures. Now, I was a very young girl at the time. I'm not even sure that I fully understood what college admissions was. So what might I be thinking, sitting on her Davenport, reading with very short hair, college admissions brochures? What do you think the emotional wake was for me? I'm hearing anger. Anger is a signal that something has crossed our boundaries. And to be sure, she had crossed my boundaries. But you see, at that age, I didn't have the skills, I didn't have the know-how to talk to her about what my boundaries were and how they were crossing. What else might I have been feeling at that time? Sadness, absolutely. Sadness is a very healthy emotion. It helps us to understand what we value. And so when we lose something that we value, we feel sad. And if we know how to process ourselves through our sadness, we ask great questions like, what do I value? What was important to me about that? How can I create more or better experiences related to getting that value fulfilled in my life? I didn't have the skills to talk to her about that. So if we don't deal with our sadness and we don't deal with our anger, where does that take us? Fear. I just heard somebody say depression, and you are absolutely right. If we don't deal with sadness, sadness either goes to depression or it goes to fear, and we get stuck in fear. And I became pretty afraid of my grandmother. I just did what she said, got tight, didn't engage with her too much. Now, hopefully that was not your experience of your grandmother, but I want to talk about chemical marinades and how they affect relationships. Let me tell you a completely different story now. A dear friend, Julie, we met right out of college. In fact, I moved to the Philadelphia area, and she and I were on a work team. Think about somebody that you know that you just love working with. Somebody where you can just finish each other's sentences, and you have so much fun engaging together. Can you get somebody like that in your mind? Nod at me when you get somebody like that. Yeah, positive emotional wake, right? Now imagine this conversation. Julie and I had been working together about 3 weeks. We're at lunch, and I say, "Hey, Julie, I don't know which college you went to." She says, "Being an East Coast girl, Shawn, you've never heard of it." I said, "Try me. I have read a lot of college admissions brochures." She says, "Okay, Northfield, Minnesota." I say, "Which one, Carleton or St. Olaf?" She says, "How could you possibly know those two colleges, schools?" I say, "Oh, my grandmother was the head science librarian there, Julie. I spent a lot of time there." "Do you mean Elizabeth Tomlinson?" "Julie, how do you know my grandmother?" Julie says, "Oh, she's my mentor. I love her. Shawn, you are so lucky. Are you the granddaughter she took to Japan?" Yes. Yes, Julie, that would be me. How does somebody I like so much like somebody I don't like so much? How does this happen? It happens every day in corporate America. I hear stories over and over and over from my clients of situations like this, right? It takes 5 positive emotional deposits to grow a relationship. If you want a relationship to thrive, you need more than 5. I say aim for 10. You see, my grandmother's interactions with me did not feel like deposits to me. They felt like criticism. But to Julie, they felt like development opportunities. And so I decided I wanted to get to know my grandmother through Julie's eyes. And she and I went and visited my grandmother together. And over time, using these tools of emotional intelligence, I began to dramatically shift my relationship with my grandmother. And today, I could tell you about a story. When I was 6 years old, this amazing woman put a globe in front of me. And she said to me, Shawn, I want you to choose somewhere that you would love to go when you're 14. And between now and then, I'm going to save all my extra money to take you there. And because I lived in New Haven, Connecticut at the time, and there was this young Japanese girl who had just joined my first grade class, I wanted to help her make friends. So I said, how about Japan? And from then on, my grandmother hosted Japanese PhD students to live in her home so that they would take me into their homes when I studied in Japan. I have an amazing grandmother, but I didn't know that until I started to look at her through Julie's eyes, until I started to understand this equation of it takes 5 positive just to keep a relationship. If you want it to grow, you need to go beyond that. Intentionally aim for 10 to 1. And frankly, because we don't always know when we cross someone's boundaries, we have different communication styles, we have different motivators. Start talking about it. So use